If a person came up to you and said, I'll give you $1 million to take your place in heaven or take your share in the world to come, depending on your theological paradigm, what would you say? Would you take it? What if they offered you $100 million? What about $1 billion? Is there anything anyone could offer you that would be appealing enough for you to forgo your place in the world to come? Most people of any kind of spiritual sensibility would flatly reject such an offer. However, we have at least 2 examples in the scriptures where our spiritual leaders were willing to do just that. Who am I talking about? Stick around and I'll tie these stories to a lesson of leadership in this week's 5-Minute Torah. Welcome back, Torah Tribe. You're watching the channel that connects disciples of Yeshua to the eternal Torah of God. This week's Torah portion is Tetzaveh, Exodus 27:20 through 30 in verse 10. And here are the 3 things that you need to know about it. Number 1, garments of the Kohanim. This week's Torah portion is almost entirely focused on the details of how to make the priestly garments. Our portion says, these are the garments that they are to make: a breastplate, an ephod, a robe, a tunic of checkered work, a turban, and a sash. They are to make holy garments for your brother Aaron and his sons, so that he may minister to me as a Kohen. This is Exodus 28, verse 4. In this passage, we read about 3 garments that every Kohen or every priest wore, along with 3 special items that were only worn by the Kohen Gadol, or the high priest. These 6 types of garments are as follows. The katonet, or the linen tunic or long shirt, this is worn by all the Kohanim. The mitznefet, or the linen turban or head covering, again, worn by all the Kohanim. The avnet, the sash to go around the waist, which was worn again by all the Kohanim. Then we have the me'il, a robe-like garment worn over the katonet, but this was only worn by the Kohen Gadol, or the high priest. We also have the ephod, similar to an apron that's worn over the me'il, worn only by the Kohen Gadol. And then we have the hoshen, the breastplate attached to the ephod, worn only by the Kohen Gadol. Besides these 6 items, the Kohanim wore 2 additional items. The tzitz, or the golden headpiece worn only by the Kohen Gadol, and the michnasayim, the linen pants worn by all the Kohanim. At any one time, the regular Kohen would wear only 4 components: the tunic, the turban, the belt, and the pants. At times, however, the Kohen Gadol could wear up to 8 garments, including the ephod, breastplate, robe, tunic, turban, belt, crown, and the pants. Number 2, the Choshen HaMishpat. The Choshen HaMishpat, or the breastplate of judgment, according to Exodus 28:30, is only worn by the Kohen Gadol, which is the high priest. It was a piece of woven cloth made of 3 colors of dyed wool. These colors are techelet, argaman, and tolaat. It's also made from linen and golden threads. It was folded in half with 12 precious stones set into gold mounts, with each stone representing one of the 12 tribes. These stones were arranged in 4 rows. The type of stones I've listed here are according to the translation of the Temple Institute in Jerusalem. The ruby, representing Reuben; the emerald, representing Simeon; the topaz for Levi; the carbuncle for Judah; the sapphire for Issachar; the quartz crystal for Zebulun; jacinth for Dan; agate for Naphtali; amethyst for Gad; chrysolite for Asher; onyx for Joseph; and the opal for Benjamin. And inside the fold of the material were the Urim and Tumim, 2 mysterious objects that were somehow used as lots that gave the Kohen Gadol divine wisdom in situations where human reasoning was unable to determine the proper course of action. And number 3, the me'il. The me'il, or robe of the Kohen Gadol, was entirely made of techelet, turquoise-dyed wool. Around the bottom of it, it was decorated with pomegranate shapes made from the 3 colors of wool discussed previously. In between each pomegranate was a solid gold bell. You shall make the robe of the ephod all of blue. It shall have an opening for the head in the middle of it, with a woven binding around the opening, like the opening in a garment, so that it may not tear. On its hem you shall make pomegranates of blue and purple and scarlet yarns around its hem, with bells of gold between them, a golden bell and a pomegranate, a golden bell and a pomegranate, all around the hem of the robe. And it shall be on Aaron when he ministers, and its sound shall be heard when he goes into the holy place before the Lord, and when he comes out, so that he does not die. This is Exodus chapter 28, verses 31 through 35. It says that Aaron and his sons are to have the pomegranates and bells on the robe, so that, quote, its sound shall be heard when he goes into the holy place before the Lord, and when he comes out, so that he does not die. Verse 35. Many have talked about the high priest wearing this garment into the Holy of Holies, so that the other priests could hear him still moving and be sure that he has not died, etc. However, this passage doesn't mention the Holy of Holies, only the holy place. The high priest actually wasn't ever allowed to wear these garments into the Holy of Holies. The only garments he could wear when he came into the most holy place were his simple white linen garments. The lavish, ornate garments he normally wore were to hold the respect of the people he served. When he entered the presence of the King of Kings, he came with humility. 5 minutes of Torah, 5 minutes of Yeshua, 5 minutes of heavenly bliss. This is what you can expect every time you pick up a copy of a volume of my 5-Minute Torah series. If you're short on time, we've got you covered. Each weekly commentary is designed to be read like a devotion in about 5 minutes or less. It's great for personal study or to spark discussion around your Shabbat table. By picking up a copy of the 5-Minute Torah or any of my other books, you help support this channel. Just use the link in the description box below this video. This week's Torah commentary is called The Invisible Leader, and it comes from my book, 5-Minute Torah, Volume 3. Parshat Tetzaveh is unique from all of the other Torah portions from the beginning of Exodus to the end of Numbers in an unusual way. How so? The name of Moses is curiously missing from the text. In every other portion, we hear his name mentioned at least once, if not multiple times. This week, however, the Torah is silent when it comes to actually naming Moses. Why is this the case? Several theories explain why this Torah portion does not mention the name of Moses. The predominant theory connects this week's Torah portion to the major events that happens in our next reading, Parshat Ki Tisa. What is this? The sin of the golden calf. While Moses was still up on Mount Sinai receiving the Torah from the Lord, the Israelites demanded that Aaron make an idol they could worship. The Lord revealed to him what was going on in the camp and told Moses that he was going to destroy the entire nation and start over with him. I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them, in order that I may make a great nation of you. Exodus 32, 9 and 10. Moses quickly made his way down the mountain to intervene on behalf of the children of Israel. He pleaded with the Lord to not destroy them. He went so far as saying that if the Lord blotted them out, then he should blot out him as well. Alas, this people has sinned a great sin. They have made for themselves gods of gold. But now, if you will forgive their sin, but if not, please blot me out of your book that you have written. Exodus 32, 31 and 32. Moses stood up for the children of Israel. He was even willing to give up his own life on their behalf. He told God that if he was unwilling to forgive the Israelites, then he would have to blot him out of his book also. What does this mean? He means the book of life. And because of his chutzpah, his bold tenacity, and his fierce devotion to his brothers and sisters, he was able to turn the Lord's anger away from the children of Israel. And because the Lord forgave Israel's sins, he didn't blot out Moses from the book of life, but he did remove his name from one of the Torah portions as a reminder for us of Moses' caliber of leadership, the portion of Tetzaveh that is primarily focused on equipping the priest to serve as a mediator between God and Israel. Well, the Apostle Paul follows the example of Moses by saying that he would even be willing to cut himself off from Yeshua for the sake of his Jewish brethren. I have great sorrow and unceasing anguish in my heart, for I wish that I myself were accursed and cut off from Christ for the sake of my brothers, my kinsmen according to the flesh. This is Romans chapter 9, verses 2 and 3. Yeshua, the prophet who was to be like Moses, also followed Moses' example and was willing to lay down his life on our behalf in order to draw us near to his Father. He emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men, And being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. Philippians 2, 7 and 8. Paul tells us that Yeshua emptied himself. In a sense, both he and Moses became invisible. They were willing to forgo their own desires for the sake of others. Most people aren't able to let go of themselves and truly focus on others. A true leader, however, is a servant and a shepherd. He's willing to lay down his life on behalf of his flock. His action should not be focused inwardly, but on those whom he is leading. Yeshua told his disciples, "For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." Mark 10:45. Both Moses and Yeshua exhibited this trait by being willing to lay down their lives for the flock of Israel. A true leader is willing to do the same. I have a confession to make. As I was trying to prepare for shooting this video, I was getting frustrated. It seemed that every time I tried to sit down and work on it, my attention was needed elsewhere. I couldn't do what I felt needed to be done because I was constantly serving other people. Oops. I had written the material, but I'd missed the point of my own message entirely. Rather than taking the opportunity to serve others and put aside my needs, I let the enemy rob me of my joy of serving others. I want to encourage you not to make the same mistake that I did. Learn from the Good Shepherd and lay down your life, at least your priorities, for those you are serving. Be that invisible leader that everyone wants to follow. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, be sure to check out my 5 books video series right here, where I introduce you to 5 books per episode that could change your life. And if you missed last week's video, Lessons from the Holy Art, you can check it out right here. I'll see you again soon in another Messianic insight into the eternal Torah of God. Blessings from a Minute Torah.